Thank you for watching The Crown of Courage. Again, my name is Ethel Gardner. This is our second episode of the show, The Crown of Courage, Life After Loss. This is a vitally important show, and I want you guys to watch the episodes because there's healing for you in this. Today, I want to talk to you about courage again. This is our second episode, and I'm so thankful to be here. You know, I love telling my story because it's a story that's universal, and I really want people to know if you have courage, you can do anything in life that you have been called to do. Today, I want to tell you about a journey, and I want you to come on this journey with me because it's a journey that I never thought that I would ever complete. But I'm sitting here today because not only of acts of courage, but the journey that I'm on and the time that I was giving, I'm here. And so I want to talk to you parents today about life after loss. And what does that look like? I told you in the first episode about the loss of my son. And now I want to tell you how I navigated my life through going through grief. You see, after I left my sister's house and I moved to Laverne, California, a big, beautiful home, me and my children, very secure, went back to school, got my GED, and was in nursing, and I was very happy. For the first time in my life, I was happy. For the first time in my life, I could smile. For the first time in my life, I could say, oh my God, I could feel something other than grief and depression and loss. So here I am with this beautiful home, and my children are safe. But remember, my background coming from Ohio with these holes of abandonment and these holes of rejection, I brought it with me. And I didn't know how deep those holes were and how layer after layer after layer I would have to deal with it at some point in time. So I didn't know what I was going to do, but I was so extremely happy in the place that I was in. And I was so grateful to have my children and not be controlled by anyone. So I found this new sense of freedom, and I loved it. But what I didn't know was limitations. I didn't know boundaries. So we started going out, my sister and I. And we started going to parties, and we started going to bars, and we started going to clubs. Now, mind you, I had never, ever, ever drank before. It was something that we just didn't do. First of all, I wasn't allowed to do it. Secondly, I didn't like the taste or the feel of it because my parents were alcoholics, and I watched them go through this thing before my mom left, the fighting and all of the chaos that we experienced in our home. And so here I am making a decision never to drink. But I'm in a new place. I'm in a new space. And not only that, I have these things inside of me that I don't know that are there. And so we started going out. And we were really having a good time. And I started drinking a little bit of wine, just a little bit. I didn't like the taste, but I tried it again, and I tried it again. And all of a sudden, I kind of got used to the taste, but it wasn't the taste. It was the way it made me feel. It made me feel something that I had never felt before. And this feeling was I could laugh, I became free, I would look at myself in a different space, and I was like, oh my God, I don't have to be uptight. I don't have to be this person that can never smile. This freedom. So this alcohol, it started off with just wine. And so I went to the store one time and I bought a bottle of wine. And right next to the wine, there was these beautiful wine glasses. And I got this nice house. I'm going to buy these beautiful glasses and I'm going to drink wine by myself without anybody there. But guess what? Something triggered inside. Something triggered me. And I started drinking this wine. And I found myself drinking every single solitary day. It started off with wine. And then I would up it a little bit. I said, well, I'm not getting that feeling that I want. So then I made strong drink. I started drinking vodka. And then I went to gin. And then I went to brandy. And it just went on and on. And I liked the feeling inside. But after the drinking, there was a sense of sadness. And so I started going back out with my sister to clubs. And a sudden, I loved the attention that the men were giving me. Remember, all I've ever wanted in my life was love. And now I have the alcohol, and now I have these men that are looking at me. And they are all saying, you're beautiful, you're beautiful. So I have these two combinations going on in my life. And I'm like, what am I going to do? I love the attention from the men. And I love the way the alcohol made me feel at home. It gave me this freedom. But deep down inside, it also gave me this fear. And I continued on this journey. And at some point in time, I saw my children growing up. They were growing up, they were doing well in school, but at some point in time, I left my children in a very vulnerable state because I wasn't always present. I was there, but I wasn't present. I was preoccupied with filling these holes with something. And so I used alcohol to do it. And I started dating, going out. I wanted the guys to tell me that I was pretty. I needed them to tell me that I was one of those kind, you're a rarity. I needed to hear that because remember, this void inside of my soul. And so that carried on for quite a while. The alcohol got worse and worse and worse to the point that I became addicted to alcohol. What do you do? What do you do? Now here I am in a new place. I'm in a new space. I have a beautiful home. My children are safe. But here I am, again, locked in to this addiction. Addicted to alcohol now. Addicted to negative attention. Any attention to me was good. Because remember, when you're looking for love, sometimes you look for it in all the wrong places, in all the wrong spaces. And that's who I was, addicted to attention. And so on this journey, again, sometimes I left my children in a very vulnerable state. I started having parties at my house. I started meeting friends at clubs. I even started bartending. I've never had a job. And I just started to bartend at the local club because I wanted and needed that attention. It didn't matter if it was negative, it was attention. And so sometimes I would leave the house and stay over here and stay there and go all these places and not come home. And I would leave my children in a very vulnerable state. And I would ask myself, what are you doing? And why are you doing this? Just to feel these holes inside of my soul. And my children would come and say to me sometimes, Mom, you have to calm down. You went from this and now you're at the complete spectrum on the other side. I didn't know how to balance. There was no balance in my life. It was all or nothing. And now I'm finding this negativity. It's very negative, but to me it felt very good and very real. And it was something that I needed for myself because now I'm in self-control mode. You know what that feels like? It's a self-control mode, but it's a very negative one. And so when I set myself down and I talked to my children, I was a good mom when I was there. I was a good mom when I was present. I was a good mom when I wasn't drinking alcohol. I didn't know the effect that this had on anybody. I thought, this is my house, this is my life, I could do what I want to do. But I didn't know the effect that the alcohol would have on my children. And again, sometime I would leave them in a very vulnerable state, inviting people over to my house and being drunk and passed out somewhere. So, let me tell you, today I have to be honest and open. If I'm going to tell my story, I can't have these places where I omit certain truths because it's not going to help anybody to do that. But to be honest, to be blatantly honest about what you have gone through, it may help somebody else. You see, my story is not only for women, it's for men, it's for anybody who have a story that they really want to get out and tell and talk about it. And so in this alcohol state, I was there for several years, and it got worse, and it got worse. And my behavior became something that I was absolutely not proud of. You see, I was so used to being this giver and this nurturer, but now I was very angry, and I was always in this anxiety state. And I didn't know what anxiety and depression looked like. I had no idea. We never talked about it. But I would drink to numb something inside of me. And I found out it was depression. I found out it was anxiety. But I wanted and needed this negative attention that I was getting. And all of a sudden, my world evolved. But was it evolving? Not really. It was band-aiding. It was putting a band-aid on these holes in my soul. But I didn't know. Who do you talk to? Who do you tell? My kids are telling me your behavior is becoming very sporadic. Who are they to tell me? I'm the mother. I control this house. I pay the bills now. And so I didn't want to hear it from that perspective. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And I wanted to see life in a different lens. Can I tell you, my friends, sometimes you really have to look at life with a different lens. Go back and study that lens. Go back and study that film strip and find out where you left off. Where did you pick these behaviors up and why? I had an opportunity one time to talk to a counselor, to talk to a therapist, because I was in denial. I'm not an alcoholic. I just like to drink. I like the way it makes me feel. I like it because it can make me feel better about myself and better about my circumstance. And I could deal with things a lot differently. But was it? And I had a therapist to come to talk to me. And she said to me, you have to heal without self-medicating. I was so angry. I didn't want to hear that. I wanted her to tell me I was okay, just the way I am. But that's not what she said. And I didn't receive it. I didn't want to hear it. And so I went back. And guess what? The alcohol and the drinking got worse. Because after all, how could you tell me my limitations? How could you tell me how much I can bear? You don't know my story. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know this pain. And I kept drinking. My kids were going to school, sometimes by themselves. Sometimes I wasn't even there when they were going to school. I thought I was present. I thought I was okay, but I really wasn't. And my son one time came and talked to me. He goes, Mom, you need to take a look at yourself. Are you okay? And I go, I think I am. He goes, Mom, I don't think you are. And I had to take a look at that. I had to, again, layers on top of layers. See, what I learned was what you're running from, you're running with it. And everywhere you go, there you are. I wasn't ready to turn and face myself. Not at this point, because I have this new found freedom and I was enjoying it. But was I? Was this self-destructive behavior becoming who I was, this person, because I just wanted attention? I'm still looking for love. Now I'm looking for it in a bottle. Now I'm looking for it going out to these clubs, having men to tell me how pretty, how wonderful, how gorgeous I am. Remember, I was so young, very, very young. And so one day, my son, my family, my daughters were sitting at the table. And my son said to me, Mom, you know, I'm really doing well in school. And I really want to go on a football trip. And I go, let's talk about it. His sisters and I sat down. I didn't have a reason not to let him go. I really did not. I wanted him to be happy. I wanted to show him that I could make up for him not having a father. I wanted and needed him to know I could fill that void in you. But you know what? It's hard for mothers to raise sons. It's difficult. We do our very best. But they need a man present in their lives to show them things that I possibly could never show him. I did the best that I could as a single mother, but there was things that I couldn't fulfill in him, even though I wanted to. And so we sat down and we talked about this football trip. And I said to him, let's all go pray and let's see what God will say. And we agreed. And we agreed. I never gave it a second thought. I didn't pray about it. I was just trying to get rid of him so I can go back to drinking. It was my 5 o'clock happy hour at my house, and that's what I called it. It's 5 o'clock, happy hour for me. It didn't matter if there were people in the house or not. It was my time to drink, and I was ready. Remember those beautiful glasses? I would pull them out and just have everything prepared for me to self-destruct. That's exactly what it was, self-destruction. And so I waited for the kids to leave, go to school, wherever they were going, so I could drink, turn my music on, and have myself just a party. But after the drinking and after the music, the pity would come, the triggering me. I go, wait a minute, this is very, very familiar. And so my children and I, they would come back from school, I would have dinner. I was very functional at times, because I needed to. Remember, I didn't want them to see this mother that was dysfunctional. I wanted them to see a healed mother. I wanted them to see a person that was in control, a woman that could take care of her family. That's what I wanted them to see. But what I didn't see was they saw behind the scars. They saw behind the beautiful glasses and the alcohol. They saw this broken, fragmented piece of a woman, still trying to find myself. Again, now it's in a bottle. So as time went on, and my daughters and my son and I, we would celebrate beautiful holidays. I could decorate this house. I could almost do exactly what I wanted to do. And I felt good about myself in areas. But there was still so many fragmented pieces inside of my soul that I had no idea that were not fulfilled. And I'm trying to find myself now in all of these entities, all of these things. And my children now are almost becoming the parent, because I just decided I just needed that time and that space and that place just to be. I could feel that emotion sometimes rising up in me as a woman. I didn't want to be an alcoholic. I didn't want to bring all these issues from Ohio to California, but the healing never occurred. And so here it is. Here it is, the tapestry. Looking at my life, trying to go forward. But every time it seemed like I went forward, I would fall back. And I made promises to myself. I made declarations. Okay, I'm going to drink this bottle of wine, and after that, no more. I promise. But the moment things started triggering me, old songs, old habits, calling home, talking to my family when I was half drunk, triggers, triggers. And I would drink that bottle, and I would go get another bottle and drink that bottle until I passed out. So alcohol became my friend, my mentor. That's who I talked to. That was it. Nobody knew my story. Nobody was going to tell me what to do. And so again, as time passed, this football trip was on the horizon. And I said I would pray, but I absolutely did not, because that was not a priority to me. I became a priority to myself. I did. Going out, having a good time, going drinking, going dancing. These are things that I never experienced before. Remember, I was 8 years old. I'd never experienced life. I didn't know what life looked like. I didn't know how to have a good time. I rarely smiled. But now alcohol gave me a reason to smile and to laugh. And sometimes I would become so loud, I couldn't believe this voice was coming from me. But I did. I did it. I did it all. And I would go and I would come back and I would talk to my kids, and every day I would say to myself, this behavior has to stop. But I couldn't stop myself. I became addicted. I became an alcoholic. I was addicted to the negative attention. And that's how these awful relationships occur. This negative addiction. And so back at my house, beautiful house, I said to myself, no more. I'm going to stop. I have to find some kind of balance. I have to give myself permission to feel, to heal, and to find something else that will take the place of this alcohol. You see, I went from domestic violence to alcohol. And guess what? One was physical, and the other one was emotional. But there was still abuse. And it was all in here, tucked in a nice package. We're talking about courage. We're talking about life after loss. We're talking about one courageous act at a time in the face of fear, in the face of adversity. We can do it if we try, if we apply. I wasn't ready. I was not ready. And so as I watch my children grow, as I watch time pass, as I watch myself get more and more addicted to alcohol, I wanted the help, but I didn't want the help because I wanted and needed to self-medicate. Why? Because it took me out of the realm of reality and it placed me somewhere where I could deal. That's what it did for me. It took me to places and spaces where I can have a euphoric reality where I didn't have to deal. But I was hurting and I was in a lot of pain. And I just wanted someone to love me for me. But guess what I didn't do? I've never discovered who I really was. I always was told what people thought of me, not what I thought of myself. So I'm seeking after this feeling, this person. Now people are telling me I'm pretty. I look for that. Now that's happening. And guess what? It was not fitting the bill. Not anymore. The alcohol made me feel something. It made me smile. It made me laugh. It made me dance when I felt so ugly and so depressed and so anxious. I didn't know. I had no idea. And my daughters became a mother to me. They took care of the house. They took care of my son. They cooked the meals. And they would just let me go on about my business. As long as I was safe in the house, protected, they were fine. They were fine. I never knew the position I put them in. And I would brag about how they are so responsible. Oh, I raised good children that are so responsible. Look, I could leave for days and leave them here. And when I come back, it's like I never left. Placing them in this space, placing them in these spaces where they are looking at me like, what is going on? They have too much respect to ask me. They have too much respect to tell me, but they're watching this behavior unfold. My son was the one that would always come to my room and say, Mom, are you okay? I'm fine. Always, always, a glass or a bottle right there, sitting right by me. Because after you leave, I'm going to take a sip. And I'm going to take a sip. Right before I go to bed, I'll take another sip. We're talking about courage in the face of adversities. We're talking about life after loss. One courageous act at a time. Was I a courageous woman at the time? Absolutely not. I had to become that. But let me tell you, every single solitary thing in life is used in the master plan if you allow it to. I didn't know that this would become a part of the plan as well. This was a bad behavior. It was like a bad dream. I was just in it, and I didn't know how to get out of it. So I went from one thing to another, and now I'm stuck because I didn't ask to be in that marriage, but I'm choosing to be in this alcoholism, and I like it. I really like the way it makes me feel, but do I? It made me feel good, and it made me cry, because guess what it did? It took me out of my nature, and it took me out of my character, and I didn't want to feel that anymore. But I kept drinking, and I kept drinking, and I kept drinking, and my kids were getting older and older and older, and we still navigated through life as if everything was okay. And my son came back 1 year after we talked about that football trip. He goes, Mom, we only have 6 months, and you have to make a decision. And I go, I will make a decision, son, because I think that you are worth it. I think that you are ready, and I want you. I want you to go on this football trip. I need you to go, because getting away from the house and getting away from the alcoholism and getting away from me may help you out. So yeah, you definitely will have my blessing to go on this football trip. I said I would pray, but I didn't. I said he had my undivided attention, but he didn't. I was self-absorbed with this alcoholism. I was self-absorbed with me getting my needs met by men telling me how pretty I was. I became that. So we sat down and we had a conversation. And I said to my son, okay, it's time for you to go on this trip, and I'm going to let you go. So my son was preparing to go on this football trip. May 1st, he turned 17 years old. May 1st. This trip was right after his birthday. He left my house on May the 5th, just going on a football trip with the Bonita High School football team. And I gave my son my blessings. I did. I felt he deserved it. Every time I would look at this kid, he had this charismatic look. He had this charismatic character. He was a very caring young man, very kind, very strong. And I adored him. He was my heartbeat. And I was wanting him to go on this trip because I felt he deserved it. And so with my blessings, he left. And as we spoke about in the very first episode, that phone call, I remember my son told me before he left, he goes, Mom, you know what I want for my birthday? I go, what was that? What would that be, son? He goes, I want a waterbed. Now, this was back in the 90s. I want a waterbed. Guess what? One of my neighbors on my street was selling a waterbed. This was a perfect opportunity for me to get the waterbed while he's gone on this trip, get it in his room, and have it all together before he came back. That was my idea. I wanted to surprise him. I wanted him to know how much I loved him. I wanted him to know, in spite of my addiction, you are my priority. And so we went across the street and got this waterbed. Me and my girl setting up his room so beautifully. He was a beautiful football player. He wanted to become a pro football player because he had the heart, he had the strength, and he had the ability. And I could see that in him as a very young child. Determination, determination. And so we're setting up his room with this beautiful waterbed, and all of a sudden the phone rings, and it's him on the phone. And I go, oh my God, my son. So he talked to his sister, said, I want to talk to Mom, and he started talking to me. But there was this silence, this real quiet silence. And I go, hey, are you having a good time? He goes, yes, Mom. He says, my friends and I are here. It's really hot out here. It's really hot, but I'm having a good time. He goes, Mom, I want to tell you something. I go, okay. He goes, thank you for trusting me. Thank you for trusting me, Mom. And I go, honey, you know what? I totally trust you. I just want you to have a good time. Don't worry about anything. And I looked over at the waterbed, and I was getting ready to tell him, guess what? I have that waterbed that you desired. But something said, don't say a word. And so I just kept talking to him. And all of a sudden, for a moment in time, there was complete silence. And he says, Mom? I go, yes, son. He goes, I want you to do me a favor. I go, okay. He goes, take care of yourself, Mom. You're good, Mom. Take care of yourself. I go, I promise you that I will. I said, I want you to be careful, and I want you to come home safe. This was Memorial Weekend. And so they were at Lake Havasu in Arizona. And I said to my son, all I want you to do is make it home safe. And I remember before he left, he had this calendar, and he marked down that every single day he would go to his room and he would mark this calendar and mark it down. And I would go up in his room and I would look, and I would see the countdown for him to go on this trip, and now he's there. And I missed him. I really missed him so much. And he was only gone for the weekend. And so after we hung up the phone, it was almost like I wanted to pick it back up and say, wait, I want to hear your voice again. I'm not done talking to you. I need to hear your voice again. Can you feel that emotion? This is what a mother's cry feels like. There's a cry so deep down inside. And so the phone hung up, and I went downstairs, and my daughters were down there, and they were talking. And I went outside, physically went out of my house, and I looked up and down the street, and I said to myself, I could hear the cars going up and down. Would I ever hear the car that has my son in it that will come back to this street? And I said to myself, why are you thinking like this? Something inside of my soul, my spirit was telling me, this may be the last time that you talk to your son. Are you prepared? Are you prepared? We're talking about courage. One courageous act at a time. Do you know what I did? I went in the kitchen and I started baking a cake. And I said to myself, when he comes back, I'm going to bake this beautiful, beautiful cake for him just to show him my love and my appreciation. And my daughters were there and they were laughing. They're going, Mom, you're making a cake? I go, yes. He just had a cake for his birthday. I'm going to make him another cake for Memorial Day. And I started making this cake. But when I started to bake, I started to cry. And there was a feeling inside of me, deep, deep down inside of me, that said, you may never see him again. You see, I can feel that emotion. It's still there. But you know what? I don't push it down anymore. I want it to come to the surface. In order to deal, you have to feel. You have to. In order to say that I hurt, you have to confess that. I'm hurting. I'm hurting. And so after this cake was made, and I went upstairs to my room, and outside was beautiful mountains, and I just looked. And I laid down and I went to sleep. And when I went to sleep, I saw this open vision, an open vision. And in this vision, I saw white curtains, and I saw a person laying on this bed. I never saw a face. I never saw a face, but I saw this person, and these white curtains were blowing. And I looked, and I said to myself, what is going on? In the dream, in this dream, I heard the name will be Joy. And I said to myself, I don't understand. I don't understand. 4 hours after the dream, that's when I get the phone call. Miss Gardner, your son has been in a terrible car accident, and he's in Las Vegas, Nevada. That is where the first episode left off. He was in Nevada, and I wanted to know, how did he get in Nevada? He was airlifted because he hit his head, and they airlifted him to a Nevada hospital. And when I hung up, I talked to my daughters, and we were on our way. Can I tell you, when I walked in that hospital, when I walked in that corridor, guess what I saw? I saw someone laying there, and I saw white curtains, and I couldn't believe my eyes. And people were running over there to me, and they're saying, are you okay? And I'd go, I'm fine. I've been here before. I've experienced this. For some reason, it's like I was having this out-of-body experience. I've been here. I've seen it. I know that's him laying there. And I walked over there, and I said to my son, oh my God, I'm looking at him in that state. I don't know if he can hear me. I don't know what's going on. But all I see is my baby laying in that bed. And all, as a mother, I wanted him to do was just get up. Get up. I've seen you push through that football field. I've seen you cross the goal line. I've seen you when they handed you that baton, when you were a runner. I've seen it, and now I need you to get up. I need you to get up. And he laid there. And they came into the hospital room, and they said, are you okay? And I said, I just need a moment just to talk to my son. And my daughter walked in. I didn't cry. I just had this blank look. And I said, please, son, for me, get up. 7 days. 7 days we were at that hospital. I went to my hotel room. I got the phone call. My son's heart stopped. It was over. When I got there, they were putting him in this body bag. And I remember my daughter saying, please, don't put him in that bag. He can't breathe. She had no idea that my son was gone. He had crossed over. And on the way home, I would look at the beautiful clouds, and I would say, he's there now. He's there. He's closer to God's house than he is to my house. And how would I deal? Again, when I got home, everything was familiar, but I was different. I was different. I just experienced a loss of a child that the human heart can barely deal with. I mean, I was so broken and so bruised. Now, what was I going to do? I overcame all of this, but this, would I be able to handle this? I'm not sure. But guess what? I went upstairs to my room, and I sat there, and I sat there, and I sat there, and I didn't drink any wine. For the first time, I said, I'm not going to touch it because I got to feel this. I got to feel it. And they came in and out of that house, and I never went downstairs. I let my daughters handle whatever needed to be handled because I needed to find my place, and I needed to find it then. Let me tell you, life in reverse. You know the day that you're born and that slash and the day that you leave this earth? This is what I found out. What do you do in the time that you have? What do you do? How do you feel your destiny, your purpose, your goals in life in the short span of time that we have? And that's what I was thinking of. Would my son want me to die? Absolutely not. Did I want to die? Absolutely. Yes. My heart was broken. I'm talking to parents right now. I'm talking to you. I'm letting you hear the sound of a mother's cry, a woman that had no voice. And now all I'm doing is crying. My child is gone. I think my life is over. Would I be a courageous person, one courageous act at a time in this dispensation? Life will teach you. You'll find out. I made a decision that day. I was going to live. I made a decision that day that I was going to allow myself to be used in this capacity for parents that have lost children. You see, this story, The Crown of Courage, is not just for women. It's for men. It's for fathers. Fathers, you got to teach your children how to love. You got to nurture them. You got to tell them you love them. You got to tell them you're there for them. We need you, fathers, like we need our mothers. My son didn't have a dad, so I try to make up for it. I try to give him the love that I never had. And now he's gone. So the day we had my son's funeral, he died. His birthday was May 31st. I'm sorry, his birthday was May 1st. He died May 31st. He was in the hospital 7 days. And now, we're putting his body to rest. What do you do? Can I tell you, I was in so much pain and disparity. I was so angry. I was so hurt. I didn't know what I was going to do. And after that funeral, I went upstairs to my house. I put my son's football jersey on. I got in his bed, and I went to sleep. And I went into a deep, deep, deep sleep. And I started having visions. And I heard this small voice in the back of my head that said, "You'll be okay." It was very familiar. Whose voice was that? My father used to say, "You're going to make it. You're going to be okay." You see, life, as you knew it, had groomed me. Life had groomed me. Destiny, the journey, had groomed me. You see, you have to water where you're planted. I had to learn. Again, it's like going to a foreign land, and I don't speak the language. That's where I was. My son is gone. I'm grieving. I'm hurting. And now I have to make a decision. I have to make a decision to live or to die. I'm looking at death. I'm looking at death. I desire to live, but how do you live through? How do you live through loss? One courageous act at a time. I started journaling and I started writing again. I was so broken and so hurt. And my daughters, they didn't know if I was going to live or die. But I had to at least apply life. And I started journaling again. And let me tell you, I cried and I prayed, and I cried and I prayed, and I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote. And one day I heard this voice say, may I use this for the glory for other people that have experienced the loss of a child. May I use this. May I use your story. May I use your voice. A mother's cry. Can good come from a broken heart? Can it? I didn't know at the time. And so what I did was I journaled and I got myself together. I got myself off alcohol. I was determined. I was not going to allow my son's life to be in vain. I didn't want my daughters to have an alcoholic mother anymore. So I empowered myself. I put on this robe that I needed to feel. I needed to get out of that space. Let me tell you, it was very, very difficult. I didn't know what I was going to do, where I was going to go, or how this whole thing will evolve. But I knew my faith would carry me to my next level, and that's all that I had. That's all that I had. When life is in reverse and you lose a child, you lose an expectation of life. There's no comparison. Expectation versus the loss of a child? No. No. And I would go and ask people, am I going to be fine? And they would say, no, you're not. And I would have to tell myself, yes, you are. And you can't go back to the alcohol. You can't go back to the bottle. You can't go back to that person. There is no going back. You have to navigate life forward. Forward. You can't live life in reverse. You can't keep looking back. And the gift that I had to give myself was forgiveness. I felt guilty. I felt shame. I felt it was my fault. If I would have been a better mom, if I would have been paying better attention, if I wouldn't have been an alcoholic, I would have been there. That's how I felt. That's how I felt. But guess what? There was another plan in action. And all I had to do was surrender. Surrender. And I remember one day my daughter said, Mom, and for the first time in months, I heard the word, Mom. You see, they had said it. I didn't hear it because I had set my sights on the child I lost, and it was not on the daughters that was in that very house with me. They were there. I was there in body, but I had left a long time ago. I made a decision that day that I would empower myself, that I would give my daughters their mother back, that I would do the best that I could to be a better person. You see, I'm a nurturer by nature. I love people. It doesn't matter what race, creed, color you are. I am a giver by nature. And if I have it, I'm going to give it to you. And I look for nothing in return. And now I just wanted to get back to that person. I wanted to get back to her. I miss myself. I miss the nurturing. I miss the love. But I miss my son. And I felt guilty because I felt, do I give the love for him to other people? Is that a selfish act? I didn't know. But I would learn on the journey. And that's where we're on, a journey. The crown of courage, one courageous act at a time. To open ourselves up to our own vulnerability and to find life after loss. That's what we're talking about today. This is a universal message and is vitally important that we talk about it. In the wake of COVID-19, in the wake of the pandemic, and all that's going on in our world, love is the most powerful entity on the face of this earth. And we all need it. And sometimes we push it away. We push it away. But now I can't escape. I made a commitment to my son. I made a commitment. I would be a better person. And I would let God use the devastation and turn it into destiny. I would let him use the grief and the loss and the disparity and all of the things I had experienced as a young girl. I was willing now to lay it all down, to surrender, to become a woman of courage, to become a woman of honor, a woman of destiny, a woman that can tell the story without adding all these additives. No, just let it be raw, just like it is. I could feel it. I could feel it. And sometimes people will say, you don't have to feel that. You don't know my story. You haven't walked in my shoes. I need to feel it, because in order to experience, you have to feel it. And I decided I'm going to allow myself a privilege to tell this story, to help other people that have gone through the loss of a child, the loss of life, the loss of an expectation. You know, sometimes you may not have gone through this, but you still have issues that we're dealing with. We still have things that's hurting, that's bothering us. We're still going through the process. But I made a decision for me and for my daughters, for my family. I was going to allow this not to be wasted, not one ingredient. Life after loss. Grow where you're planted. Look at your film strip again with a different lens. And that's what I had to do. I had to do that. You see, it was no more talking. There was no more talking. I had to be about what I felt was real and dear and true to myself. And the journaling became my first book. I want to thank you all for just joining us. I want you guys to come back because I have so much more I want to talk about. Please enjoy yourself. And this is a time for you to embrace life, one courageous act at a time. Thank you. Greetings. My name is Ethel Gardner. I am the founder of the Kennedy Austin Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization established in 1992. Our mission and motto is to educate, equip, and empower families and individuals that have been devastated through a crisis. We are a family helping families heal through the loss of a child. Our motto is we're going from the neighborhood to nations, and our goal is life after loss to provide hope and restoration to families and individuals who have suffered tragedy, and we go from tragedy to triumph. I just wanted to give you some information about how to contact me. You can go to my website, it's kennedyaustinfoundation.org, or you can call me 909-620-0912. You can also write me at P.O. Box 1031, Pomona, California 91767. Again, my phone number 909-620-0912, www.kennedyaustinfoundation.org. We're here to help you. This is a call to action. You are not alone. Call me, come out, and write me so we can work this out together. Again, when life is in reverse, what do you do? My website again, www.kennedyaustinfoundation.org. We also offer other programs through the Kennedy Austin Foundation, which is Reflection of Promise, that is our grief and loss, domestic violence survivors for women who have been violated through domestic violence. We have a youth program called Creating Space when children are dealing with adversities and childhood trauma. We also have anger management, know your triggers. So those are the things that Kennedy Austin is all about, and I would love for you to contact me today. Again, I'm Ethel Gardner. I am looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much.